Hello, welcome to the UTS Core Alignment procedure. This procedure is targeted at equipment technicians familiar with UTS Handler. At the end of this procedure, you'll be able to properly perform the top plate alignment and the traveler alignment. Section 1.0. The core alignment procedure should normally be performed annually, unless handler performance dictates otherwise.
At this time, we're going to be doing a setup and verification. The 1-inch round docking pin must be removed and the diamond pin installed. If this is not accomplished, it will cause a 12,000 variance in the alignment of the handler. So at this time, I'm going to remove this 1-inch roll pin. You have to use a 5/32 Allen wrench and a 5/16 Allen wrench on the inside to remove the 1-inch docking pin. Once it's removed, take the diamond pin off the core fixture and install it on the side of the chamber. Now, the diamond pin must be installed where it is vertical to the core. Install it and tighten up the 5/16 socket head screw on the inside. This is a very important step or the handler alignment will be off. If this is not lined with a diamond pin, it'll cause the input and the sort to be way out of alignment. At this time, we're going to put the right side alignment fixture onto the side of the core, and it is fastened with 3 thumb knobs. You want to make sure that the fixture is tightened all the way up next to the side of the handler where all the knobs are secure. There's no side movement. On the left side of the core, now we're going to install the alignment fixture and secure it with the 3 thumb knobs. Make sure that all the knobs are tightened down securely and the fixture is tight against the side of the chamber. At this time, we're going to put the top alignment fixture on, and it is fastened to the roll pin on each side and secured with the 2 thumb knobs. This is a critical point. The go, no-go pin must slide right past the top plate assembly. If not, alignment must be performed. As you can see here, if I put extreme force and pull the fixture back, it lines up. But this handler is going to require alignment, so we'll have to go to the next step.
Now here's Johnny to demonstrate section 3.0, top plate alignment.
Now, it is required to remove the top chamber supports, as when you put the chamber back on, you do not want it to affect the alignment that you've completed. So at this time, I'm going to remove the right and left chamber supports. Be mindful though that you must put these back on at the end of the alignment when the chamber is put on. Otherwise, it will cause alignment errors when the handler is operating. At this time, I'm going to have to loosen up the bolts underneath to move this complete core structure aft. And that requires getting underneath the core structure and loosening up all 6 support stack bolts. And once they're loose, then you move this structure back as far as you can get it, and then go back underneath and tighten up the bolts. Okay, since I could not align the stack assembly up, we must loosen up the 6 832 socket head screws on this bottom plate, as I'm pointing them out right here. Now it's best to blow all debris out from around the socket head screws so that you have more movement. Of course, anytime you're using compressed dry air, you must have eye protection. My assistant here is going to put on her eye protection. And once everybody is safe, then you use the air and blow out around the screws to get all debris out of the socket head screws. Now, using a Chapman set and a 9/64 Allen wrench, you loosen up the 832 socket head screws on the bottom base assembly. It's best to loosen up both ends first, and then using the Allen wrench, loosen up the 2 832 socket head screws in the middle. Now, using your legs as support, after you get the 832 screws loose, support the bottom section and pull aft on the structure, and then tighten up one bolt on each end. And as you can hear, the go no-go pins fell in place. When you tighten up the 832 socket head screws, it may shift back forward. If that is the case, there's other alignment positions that have to be adjusted. When you have achieved alignment, the go no-go pin should slide right past the top storage plate area, and you can see on both sides there that it slides past freely. You do not want excessive rotation in your go no-go pin. You should have no more than plus or minus 0.001 clearance. If you did not achieve alignment where the pins slide past, you would then be required to move the LN2 nozzle assembly by removing the 440 socket head screws and moving the LN2 nozzle forward to gain access to the 2 832 socket head screws underneath the nozzle. And then by loosening the aft two, you can move this top plate assembly forward and back, which should allow you to attain alignment required so the pins would move up and down freely.
Now here's Johnny to demonstrate section 4.0, traveler alignment.
Okay, now that the bottom section is aligned, we're going to line up the 90-degree rotator using this alignment fixture. Now, to put this alignment fixture on, it's best to put the right side on pin first. Now, you must use caution as you rotate this forward that you don't catch the X-Traveler cable. You want to lift the go-no fixture guides up till they slide over the 90-degree rotator, and by looking at the left side, line up the fixture, bump it just slightly, and the fixture will fall in place. Secure it with the 2 thumb knobs provided on top of the fixture. Now here we're going to be aligning the 90-degree rotator with this top plate assembly. I have a 19mm feeler gauge. As you can see, it has at least 19 mils of gap. So this is going to require the 90-degree rotator to be aligned at this point and then at the other end. So I will start on the right side first. To move the 90-degree rotator, there are several bolts that have to be loosened up to be adjusted. We have to remove the top slider assembly and loosen up the two 832 bolts at this position, and then underneath is the two bolts that hold the supports on this side, and then there's two on this side. So to do that, I'll need a 9/64 Allen wrench to remove the top slide support. Remove the clamp from the slider rods. Move this top slide mechanism and the two slider rods to the left out of the way. Now here you just need to loosen up the end support enough that you can gain access to the socket head screws from the bottom. And by using a Chapman set as leverage, you can loosen up the 832 socket head bolts. And there's two on each support post. You have to get down and look up underneath to gain access to them. By loosening all four support bolts, you can move the support post either forward or backward to hopefully attain alignment. Now I move this one approximately 2 mils forward. Now I'm going to tighten the four bolts back up using the Allen wrench and the Chapman ratchet as a leverage, so they're good and tight. Once that you get these tight, if you have not achieved alignment, you must proceed to the top of the rotator and loosen up the four 832 bolts on the top to achieve alignment. Now this worked out real well. By loosening those and moving this forward, I am now in alignment. If you did not achieve alignment, you would have to loosen up a possibility of 6 832 socket head screws on top, and you can gain another 3 or 4 mil thousandths on top. Once you've achieved that, then you put the top slider mechanism back together. Now by moving the support post, you can see at this point the go-no-go bar slides over the 90-degree rotator, and it does not move the rotator forward and aft. This is the alignment that you're trying to achieve on the rotator shaft assembly. Now put the top sliders together. You need to put the end support for the rods on by using a 9/64 ball driver. And the best thing to do here is secure the rods first. If you tighten up the end clamp and it is at an angle, it can physically bow the rods. So here, tighten up the end clamp to secure the rods, and then go to the top and tighten up the two 832 socket head screws, and then using an Allen wrench, go ahead and secure both of the 832 socket head screws good and secure. If you do this in any other method, you can physically bow the rods, and then you'll have problems with your top slider. Once that's complete, then you can move on to the next step in the procedure. On the left side of the 90-degree rotator, I have about 15 thousandths error, so it's going to require loosen up some 832 socket head screws on the left side and moving this structure forward. On the left side, you need to loosen up the four 832 socket head screws underneath the rotator support post. There again, it's easiest to do that using a ball driver and a Chapman ratchet as leverage. Loosen up the four socket head screws and then attempt to move the fixture or the 90-degree rotator to achieve alignment. And you can gain 3 or 4 millimeters of clearance with the 832 socket head screws. Tighten all 4 of them back down once you move the support post in the desired direction. Make sure that all 4 832 socket head screws are secure, and then recheck your alignment with the alignment guide bars. Now all 4 832 socket head screws are secure. I want to come back to the top and check alignment. And if you do not achieve alignment, then you must come to the top and loosen up a series of possibly 6 832 socket head screws on the top, and then move the top assembly forward or back until the alignment bar slides smoothly over the rotator. I have achieved alignment, so now my rotator is aligned to the alignment fixture. With the alignment complete, you can see at this point the alignment bar goes smoothly over the rotator, and it's not forcing the rotator forward or aft. And by using a .0025 feeler gauge, I have just enough clearance on both sides that the feeler gauge will smoothly go through on both sides. And this concludes the alignment, but we must go back and put everything back together at this time.
Now here's Johnny to demonstrate Section 5.0, the completion of the alignment procedure.
Okay, to remove the top alignment fixture, you loosen up the 2 outer thumb knobs and lay them back. Lift your guide pin up, lift the chamber up, rotate it out away from the fixture, and then lift it off the guide pin. Okay, you can set that one to the side. Then on the top plate assembly, loosen up the 2 outer thumb knobs, lift the 2 go no-go pins up, and then move the fixture aft and away from the handler. To remove the left side alignment fixture, you loosen up the 3 thumb knobs and work the fixture out. And remove it from the chamber. On the left side, we now need to remove our diamond pin and put our 1-inch roll pin on. This requires the use of a 5/32 ball driver and a 5/16 Allen wrench. Use a Allen wrench on the inside and loosen up the bolt. Remove the diamond pin from the core, and it's important that you stow the diamond pin back with the alignment fixture. Then install the 1-inch docking pin to the core using both the 5/32 ball driver and the 5/16 Allen wrench on the inside. Make sure it's good and tight, because that's where the modules dock together. This is a technician tip. With the round docking pin on, you can see this is why you must replace the roll pin with the diamond pin, because you get 12 thousandths air at the docking pin, and that compounds to the top chamber support area, so that's why it's imperative that you change this out. Now with the diamond pin installed, you can notice that you hardly get any movement at all. There might be 1 or 2 millimeters of movement here just for accessing and putting the fixture onto the handler. On the right side, remove the alignment fixture by loosening up the 3 thumb knobs. Move the fixture out away from the handler after they're all loose, and stow it back in its proper storage area. To reassemble the test site heater, you rotate it up and then put the brass jam nut on the fitting, get it started so you won't strip it out. And then put the 832 socket head screw on each end of the test site heater and get those started And by using a 9/64 ball driver, you can go ahead and tighten both ends down. Using the 9/16 wrench, tighten up the jam nut on the fitting. And go ahead and reassemble the test site heater hose, and using 3 high temperature tie wraps, secure the hose to the structure. Once you get the hose secured, using a pair of side cutters, trim off the excess of the high temperature tie wraps and discard. The handler core alignment is now complete. You make sure you do the correct documentation on the work order and the PM procedures.
Now if I can do this alignment procedure, so can you. Now here's Johnny to demonstrate Section 2.0, Setup and Verification.
I'm going to point out some of the items that need to be removed on the handler core structure before alignment actually begins. Items that need to be removed before the handler alignment starts is the chamber supports. This one is on the right side as viewed from the operator facing to the back of the handler. This chamber support needs to be removed, and it is on the left side from the operator facing aft. The test site heater right here will require to be removed for handler alignment. This 9/16 jam nut needs to be loosened up. 832 socket head screw needs to be removed. Socket head screw 832 right here needs to be removed. And these 2 tie wraps need to be cut and removed, which will enable the complete test site heater manifold to be laid forward and down out of the way, so the go/no-go fixture will fit on the top plate assembly. I'm going to show some of the items that requires to be loosened during the alignment process before we actually put the alignment fixture on, and this will be for clarity. On the top section, it may be required to loosen up the head mounting support to gain access to a socket head screw right here. Also, this top support, as mentioned earlier, will be removed to gain access to the socket head right here. Also, some of the other socket head screws that may require adjustment, there was 2 right here. There's 2 on the top of the support. The top slide in support, which is held by these 2 832 socket head screws, may require to be loosened to gain access to the socket head screws, which is underneath the support right here. On this side, at the back, there's 2 832 socket head screws under the support that will be required to be loosened and adjusted. On the bottom of the stack assembly, on the right side, underneath, there's 2 832 socket head screws that has to be accessed from the bottom underneath here. These are very difficult to get to, but you can use an 832 Allen wrench and loosen them up and get your adjustment required. On the left side of the core, from the operator facing aft, there's several items that have to be removed or loosened to make adjustment. The chamber support, as mentioned earlier, will have to be removed. This is so you can gain access to the 2 832 socket head screws underneath the chamber support. Also, the head rotator gear, these 2 832 socket head screws may require loosened and this removed to gain access to the bolts underneath right here. On the front of the rotator, there's 2 832 socket head screws right here that may require adjustment, and there's 2 on the front. Underneath the supports, there is two 832 socket head screws that will require adjustment, and on the front of this support there's two. On the bottom of the stack assembly side support, there's two 832 socket head screws gained accessed underneath here that will require loosening and adjustment, which you can gain about 2 millimeters of adjustment by loosening and adjusting that at the bottom. On the top plate, there's some other socket head screws and fixtures that may require removed to gain access to the bolts. The LN2 injector nozzle will have to be removed. Underneath there is two 832 socket head screws. So these 440 socket head screws need to be removed, and then the LN2 nozzle assembly can be moved forward to gain access to the two 832 socket head screws under the nozzle. On the back of the top plate, there's two 832 socket head screws that can be loosened, and which will allow the top plate assembly to move forward and aft at this location right here. On the left side, the top plate is adjusted by loosening two 832 socket head screws, which will allow this top plate assembly to move forward or aft, whichever the case may be, on this side right here. The electronics bay door needs to be open the latch, and then loosen up the bolt and slide the electronics door out carefully, making sure you don't catch any wires. This will be able to gain access to the bolts underneath. On the back of the handler, we need to remove the thumb screw and open up the back electronics door to gain access to the bolts underneath. Underneath the core chamber in the electronics area, on the right side, there's two 832 socket head screws that need to be loosened to allow the core stack assembly to be moved. I'm trying to point to them at this time. In the electronics bay area, there is two 832 socket head screws on the center that holds the stack support post that you can see at this location. The core in the electronics bay, there's two 832 socket head screws, and I'm pointing to with a pointer that can be loosened with 832 ball driver to allow the stack to be moved forward or aft as required. There is, underneath the core in electronics bay, there is 4 each 1/4 by 20 socket head cap screws that holds the base assembly to the undercarriage that needs to be loosened so you can move the whole assembly forward or back. I'm only going to point out one of them because the others are kind of inaccessible, but they can be accessed with a ball driver. At this time, we're going to remove the test site heater and the heater nozzle assembly and the hose going to the test site RTD, so we'll have access to put the fixture on. You need to use a 9/64 ball driver and remove the 832 socket head screw from each end of the test site heater manifold. Also, you need a pair of diagonal side cutters to remove the test site heater hose so it is out of the way. Otherwise it'll interfere with alignment. You need to use a 9/16 wrench and loosen up the jam nut holding the test site heater. Lift the heater up and rotate it down and let it lay out of the way.